Welcome to Jazz Piano Skills. I'm Dr. Bob Lawrence. It's that time. It's time to discover, learn, and play jazz piano. We've completed our 3-week study of the jazz standard Georgia on My Mind. We've analyzed it harmonically. We've analyzed it melodically. We've looked at it improvisationally, just like we do with every tune that we tackle at Jazz Piano Skills. Our harmonic analysis that we did a couple weeks ago, it looked at the form, the chord changes, the harmonic function, the common harmonic movement, the voicings, left-hand shell voicings, block voicings, two-handed structures. Pretty thorough harmonic analysis. And then we turned our attention to the melody, the melodic analysis. We transcribed the melody, in other words, learned it by ear. We established proper fingerings. We identified the melodic phrases and the target notes of those phrases, as well as exploring typically standard jazz treatments like the ballad, bossa, and the swing. And then last week, we turned our attention, as we always do, to improvisation. And we took 8 rhythms. This was fantastic. We took 8 rhythms from our daily rhythm challenge and applied them to the first 8 measures of Georgia on My Mind. We then used those rhythms to play the harmony melodically using diatonic arpeggio motion. It was very cool. Very eye-opening. Eye-opening regarding the development of melodic vocabulary and its dependency on rhythmic vocabulary. With our eyes and more importantly our ears wide open, we discovered that without a good rhythmic idea, melody and harmony fall flat. Melody and harmony need a rhythm. That's a huge revelation. Once you realize that melody and harmony need rhythm, wow, now you're ready for growth. Again, this revelation is so important, yet very, very few come to understand this musical truth, this musical fact. In fact, it's fact number 7 on our 7 facts of music list. As a result, all of their attention is given to melody and harmony. In fact, most teachers, including myself, right? I'm including myself. Most teachers neglect or give very little time and attention to rhythm study and development, which absolutely makes no sense considering that rhythm is indeed the engine that drives music. I myself have come to this revelation, which is why the Daily Rhythm Challenge now exists at Jazz Piano Skills. Rhythm deserves daily attention if we hope to develop into the musicians we hope to become. Bottom line, neglect rhythm and you will remain musically frustrated for the rest of your life, which is now going to be that's going to be an addendum to fact number 7 of our 7 facts of music, right? Neglect rhythm, and you will remain musically frustrated for the rest of your life. I was planning on sharing today a deep dive discussion about rhythm with Mark Davis. He's the author of Jazz Piano Method Books 1 and 2, published by Hal Leonard. But I've decided to hold off on that interview in order to expound upon our improvisation and rhythm exploration from last week. So today we are going to discover rhythmic major arpeggios. Rhythmic major arpeggios. And we are going to learn how to use rhythmic motifs for developing melodic vocabulary. And we are going to play diatonic rhythmic arpeggios using the major sound. Today is going to be a fun day. A day of significant growth, both conceptually and physically, for all of us. So as I always like to say, regardless of where you are in your jazz journey, a beginner, an intermediate player, an advanced player, or even if you are a seasoned and experienced professional, you're going to find this Jazz Piano Skills podcast lesson exploring rhythmic major arpeggios to be very insightful, to be very beneficial. But before we get started, before we jump in, I want to, as I always do, welcome all of the first-time listeners to Jazz Piano Skills. If you're new to Jazz Piano Skills, if you're new to the Jazz Piano Skills podcast, welcome. I want to personally invite you to become a Jazz Piano Skills member. And your membership does a couple things. Number one, it keeps the Jazz Piano Skills podcast ad-free, 100% ad-free, which I'm very proud of, and it's been my goal from day one. And number two, your membership comes loaded with many perks that are going to help you with your jazz journey. For example, number one, premium podcast content, which basically means you get to listen to the entire podcast. The first half of every podcast episode is free for everyone to enjoy. We deal with typically the question of the week. We lay out the educational agenda. We examine the lesson rationale. The second half of the podcast, for members only, we dive into the lesson content, the demonstrations, exploration of the podcast packets, the illustrations, the lead sheets, and the play-alongs. You also have access to the online interactive courses, comprehensive, self-paced, and sequential. You also have access, a reserved seat, as I like to say, to the weekly masterclasses that I host every Thursday evening, 8 p.m. Central Time. Now, I know this is not the greatest time in the world for everybody around the world. However, the masterclasses are recorded, and you can watch and rewatch the videos of the class as often as you wish and when convenient. You also, as a Jazz Piano Skills member, have access to the online private Jazz Piano Skills community. It's a fabulous community which hosts a variety of forums, education-specific forums, as well as general jazz forums. It's a great place to meet folks. It's a great place to receive some feedback and assistance, and also to lend a helping hand and offer some feedback and assistance as well. And finally, as a Jazz Piano Skills member, you have access to unlimited educational support, private, personal, and professional support, whenever and as often as you need it. So all of these amazing perks, these privileges, are waiting to help you discover, learn, and play jazz piano. So check it all out at jazzpianoskills.com, and of course, become a member. If you get to the site, you're poking around, you have some questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to help, spend a little time with you, answer any questions that you may have. I also want to take just a few minutes to plug my YouTube channel. I am producing educational content, videos daily, and I think you'll find them to be beneficial for your jazz growth. I currently have several playlists at the channel. Of course, there's the Daily Rhythm Challenge. I have 1-minute lessons, jazz talks, the Song Study of the Month, podcast episodes, and podcast guests. Again, I'm populating these playlists with new videos every week, so be sure to subscribe so that you are notified whenever I drop a new video. For example, I just released a 1-minute lesson covering dominant chordal voicings. It's short, it's sweet, and it's to the point. So much to the point that it's only 1 minute long. Hence the name 1-minute lessons. Needless to say, I'm excited about the YouTube channel, this new dimension to Jazz Piano Skills, and looking forward to growing it, to help us all discover, learn, and play jazz piano or whatever instrument that you are studying. Okay, so typically at this time I do the question of the week, but since today is really more of a lecture series episode with a lot of music demonstrations to get through, I'm going to skip the question of the week this week. We'll get back to that next week as usual, as we usher in a new month and, of course, a new tune to study. All right, so let's talk about rhythm. Yes, let's talk about rhythm. I have a question. Why do we neglect talking about rhythm? Why does it get neglected? Neglected by teachers, neglected by students. On the other hand, melody, improvisation, harmony, chords, and voicings, right? They get all the attention, while rhythm, crickets. Teachers, I think, I know teachers want to assume that students understand rhythm. We assume that students can play a whole note in time, or 2 half notes in time, or 4 quarter notes in time. We assume this. Teachers, especially young teachers, are afraid of boring students by discussing such fundamentals. So instead of boring students, I guess it's better to musically frustrate them. And frustrate them in that musical struggles often, if not always, are traced back to a lack of an ability to command fundamentals. And being capable of playing whole notes, half notes, quarter notes in time are, without question, fundamentals. Now, on the other hand, students don't want to talk about fundamentals like playing a whole note in time, or 2 half notes in time, or 4 quarter notes in time, because, of course, they can do it. The student mindset is, please, do not insult me. That is Rhythm 101, and I certainly do not need to waste time practicing such a rudimentary skill. See, I guess it comes down to rhythm is a touchy subject. It's touchy because, you know why? It's personal. It's very personal. No one is embarrassed because they have never been introduced to various approaches for developing improvisation skills. No one. And no one is ever embarrassed because they have never been taught two-handed chordal voicings. Never. But if you're not capable of playing a single note and holding it for 4 counts and then strike it again on count 1 of the next measure in time, not coming in early or arriving late, or being able to play 4 quarter notes in time without rushing or dragging, well, see, that's personal. That's very personal. That's an internal skill that you either instinctually have or it needs to be practiced and developed. For most people, it's the latter. So when it comes to rhythm, teachers and students become ultimately they become partners in crime by silently agreeing to not discuss rhythm and instead focus entirely on non-personal skills like melody, improvisation, and harmony, chords. One other very important side note about rhythm and why it is neglected by teachers. Rhythm, time, it cannot be taught. Teachers cannot teach a student time. We talk about it. We can certainly talk about it, which we don't do, as I just explained, but we cannot teach it. Time cannot be taught. Time, rhythm, can only be developed by experiencing it. And that is precisely why we, teachers, need to talk about it and provide students ways to practice it so that they can successfully develop rhythmic skills. Rhythmic skills needed, right? Rhythmic skills needed to be able to play music. Bottom line, no rhythmic skills, no playing music. And this, again, is precisely why I started the daily rhythm challenge at Jazz Piano Skills. 1 sound, 1 chord, 1 measure, 1 rhythm. Every day. 1 sound, 1 chord, 1 measure, 1 rhythm every day. Studying and practicing time, rhythm, in bite-sized chunks, 1 measure chunks. As the old idiom goes, right? Good things come in small packages. And it's indeed true. All you need is 1 small measure to expose huge weaknesses in your time and rhythmic playing. It's interesting, right? 1 little tiny measure exposes huge weaknesses. Secretly, my hope is that Everyone participating in the daily rhythm challenge experiences a personal music revelation that illuminates the importance of practicing whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, and eighth notes and 16th notes in relationship, here's the key, in relationship to a single measure, one measure. Now, what exactly am I saying when I make such a statement? Well, I'll tell you. It happens frequently when I begin working with a new student, especially with a student with a musical background and experience. It's their first lesson. I will ask them if they are comfortable with major scales. Typically, the answer is yes. I know my major scales. Of course, I respond with, hey, man, that's great. You know what? Pick your favorite scale and play it for me. So here comes the C major scale, played at least one octave, sometimes two, even three octaves. But once they get done playing the scale, I ask them this question. Hey, how many measures did you just play? The answer? Dead silence. Awkward silence. Eyes looking up toward the ceiling. Silence. They have no idea. They just played a melodic line and had no idea how many measures they just played. In other words, the music they just played was done so without a conscious awareness of measures, of time. Wow. I then break the awkward silence with another question. Hey, were you playing quarter notes, eighth notes, or were those 16th notes? Again, more dead silence, more awkward silence, and more eyes looking up toward the ceiling silence. Needless to say, the first lesson is not off to a great start. So, no awareness of measures, time, and no awareness of note values within the measure, rhythm, it's not good, right? It's not good. But you know what? What the heck? Let's talk about harmony. Let's talk about chords. Let's talk about melody. Let's talk about improvisation. Let's talk about those cool things, man. Just forget about the fact that you have no awareness of measures. You have no awareness of time. You have no awareness of note values within the measure. You have no awareness of rhythm. Forget all that. Let's get to the harmony, the chords. Let's get to the melody and improvisation. Much better, much more comfortable, much less personal. See, instead of dealing with the glaring deficiency in time and rhythm, we, teachers and students, want to brush it under the rug and move on to harmonic and melodic skills, which of course eventually leads to frustration because you'll never quite ever be able to play those harmonic and melodic skills quite right. There will always be something missing. That something? Rhythm. Time. And I guarantee it, if rhythm, time is missing, you will be frustrated forever. So, back to my hope for everyone participating in the Daily Rhythm Challenge, realizing the importance of practicing whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes, in relationship to a single measure, one measure. This is the goal. This is where it all begins. This is precisely what your musicianship development is 100% dependent upon. If you don't get this, whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes in relationship to a single measure, one measure, both conceptually and physically, everything else in music will be difficult. This is so important, I need to say it again. If you do not get, conceptually and physically, whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, and 16th notes in relationship to a single measure, one measure, everything else in music will be forever difficult. Your attempt to play music will be painful, not only for you, but for everyone else listening. So I strongly, and I mean this, I strongly recommend the following exercise to begin nailing down whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, and 16th notes in relationship to a single measure. Now, this exercise that I'm about to demonstrate for you needs an ensemble backing track or a drum backing track or a metronome to make time audible. We need to make time audible. You have to practice rhythms in time, and you need some time-keeping tool to keep you honest. So the objective of the exercise is to be consciously aware of filling one measure of music, right? Consciously aware of filling one measure of music with a rhythm. And there are 5 rhythms that you must absolutely command. 5. And they are as follows. 1, the whole note. Number 2, 2 half notes. 3, 4 quarter notes. 4, 8 eighth notes. And number 5, 16 16th notes. These 5 rhythms. Whole note, 2 half notes, 4 quarter notes, 8 eighth notes, and 16 16th notes. Each one of the rhythms, all 5, must be played with a conscious awareness of filling an entire measure with musical sound. A conscious awareness of playing 4 beats within a measure when playing each of the 5 rhythms. The objective is to hear the complete measure and the passing of time while playing the rhythms. You know, the way I like to practice this exercise is to play a measure of music filled with sound, rhythm, all the way through the measure to count 1 of the following measure. By nailing count 1 of the following measure, I am conditioning myself to hear a completed measure of music, as well as training myself to be consciously aware of count 1 of every measure. Tracking time and an awareness of count 1 of every measure is, without question, the key to playing music. So let me demonstrate. To begin, this exercise should be played very slow, a slow tempo. I'm talking 60, 65, 70, 80, 85. It needs to be slow enough that you can physically, technically handle the 16th notes. I'm going to play it today for the sake of time. I'm going to play it at 85. Okay? So I am going to play each of the 5 rhythms, the whole note, the 2 half notes, 4 quarter notes, the 8 eighth notes, and the 16 16th notes 4 times. 4 times. You're going to hear me play the complete measure. You're going to hear me land on count 1, right? I'm playing through the entire measure and landing on count 1 of the next measure. Okay, so let me play it, and then we can talk about it. And I may offer some comments as I'm playing it. Okay, so here we go. Starting with the whole note. Count 1. Just nailed it. 1. Whole note. 1. Great. 2 half notes. C to D, back to C. 1. 1. All right, quarter notes. 1. I'm working my way up the scale. C, D, E, F. Nailing G on count 1. All right, how about 8 notes? All the way to count 1, which lands on the D. 1. All right, 16th notes. 1. 1. 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And that's it, right? Nice, comfortable tempo. I'm playing the 5 rhythms: whole note, half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes. Now again, play at a very comfortable tempo, whatever tempo you can handle. I was only using ascending motion as well. I would also practice this using descending motion. But initially, focus on just one direction at a time. The thing you want to make sure that you are aware of, regardless of the rhythm that you're playing, the whole note, the 2 half notes, the quarter notes, the 8th notes, the 16th notes, you're playing one measure of music, regardless of how many notes you're hearing, right? It's one measure of music. You're consciously aware of the passing of time, counts 1, 2, 3, 4, leading to count 1 of the next measure. You're consciously aware of the rhythms, whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, 8th notes, 16th notes. Of course, this is one of these exercises that is so easy until, of course, you have to do it, right? So easy until you have to do it. I would recommend recording yourself and listening to yourself perform the exercise. How accurate is your time? How accurate are the rhythms, right? Be very critical, because this is where it all begins. And I cannot stress this enough. You have to be able to play this exercise using at least one of the 12 major scales. Ultimately, you want to play all 12 major scales that way, but at least one. Once you can, then you are primed for huge success with the Daily Rhythm Challenge, which means you are primed for huge musical success. And you are primed for what we are about to do today with rhythmic major arpeggios. So the educational agenda for today is as follows. Number 1, we are going to continue our exploration of the first 8 daily rhythm challenges. Number 2, we are going to apply these 8 rhythms to musical sound. Today, the major sound. Number 3, in doing so, we are going to solidify a sequential process for developing melodic vocabulary. And number 4, our melodic vocabulary will be formulated using diatonic, ascending, and descending arpeggio motion. How fun is this going to be? It's going to be a blast. So if you are a Jazz Piano Skills member, I want you to take a few minutes right now to download and print your podcast packet. So hit the pause button and download the illustrations, the lead sheets, and the play-alongs. Again, your membership grants you access to these educational materials, to the podcast packets. And as I always mention, you want these in your hands when listening to the episode to maximize the benefit from the episode. And you also want to have these materials sitting on your piano or on your music stand when practicing as well. Okay, now that you have your podcast packets, I want to quickly talk through them before we break everything apart. So number one, your lead sheets. You should have 12 lead sheets in your packet, one for each of the major keys, the major scales. And each lead sheet deals with 8 rhythmic exercises. So you should see them labeled there, A, B, C, D, and so forth. The play-alongs, the backing tracks, again, you will see 12 backing tracks, one for each of the major keys. And then the illustrations contain a nifty worksheet that will allow you to conceptually expound upon the development of rhythmic vocabulary, melodic vocabulary, mirroring exactly what we are doing today. So it's pretty cool stuff that when used correctly, which I know you will have a profound impact on your musical development, your musicianship, your ability to play jazz. All right, so now let's get down to business because we got a lot to do. So grab lead sheet 1, key of C major. Let me explain how this lead sheet is structured. Thank you for listening to Jazz Piano Skills. The remaining premium content of this episode is available to Jazz Piano Skills members at jazzpianoskillspodcast.com. Visit jazzpianoskills.com to learn more about membership privileges and become a Jazz Piano Skills member. Thank you.